prediction 6.5 years ago. I said the United States and China both need political reforms. But in the case of China, small reforms have been going on all the time in the political system. We fix problems here and there. But I said the problem is the United States. Your political system was a product of pre-industrial era. And I made a forecast. I said, without significant, substantial political reform, my concern is in your next elections, you will produce a leader worse off than George W. Bush.
Yes.
So then,
Yeah.
so it was you, it was not the Russians.
Yeah. So this is the Chinese humble advice we can offer. But China is a civilizational state. I remember when Henry Kissinger wrote his famous book on China, he started with this quote. He said, my goodness, look at this China. It's different. China used this unique language, which started 3,500 years ago. It's 1,000 years earlier than ancient Greek, 1,005 years earlier than ancient Latin. But these two European languages were dead languages. Chinese still use the same language. This line of culture and continuation of civilization, uninterrupted. So this is why we have, indeed, for instance, this whole idea of meritocracy. Why I say confident? I said with my debate with Professor Fukuyama, I said, if you look at the top leadership in China, we've just had the party's Congress, minimum requirement, 2 terms of provincial governor or similar position, which means you have to govern at least 100 million people, given the size of China, before you came to one of the top 7 positions, decision-making bodies. I said to Fukuyama, I said, with this Chinese methodology, meritocracy-based system, we can say with certainty, we can improve the system. There are problems, we can fix it. But we will not produce any leaders like George W. Bush. It's way below the Chinese bar. That's my point.
I respect deeply, more than respect, I admire Chinese civilization. I admire Chinese history. I have been all my life an admirer of Chinese art. Since I was a very young man, China has been one of the compass of my life, but I don't admire your political system. And I find much more admirable and worth of respect a system when you have the right to make a strike, when you have the right to be paid decently, when you have the right to speak freely, when you have the right to not to be contaminated by terrible pollution, and so on. So I will not say, in the name of relativism and so on, that every political regime are equivalent. I don't believe so. I really think that Europe invented an idea which does not belong to Europe, that migrated to America, that has been adopted by a lot of parts of Latin America, that is incarnated in part of Asia, which is an universal idea, which is the idea of freedom, of equality, and so on. And China of today is not worshipping these values. And that's why I do hope, I would be happy, I would not say that with surprise or not surprise, if there was one day a real Chinese Spring, a real cultural revolution, as the one I saw in my youth, of Chinese people saying it's good to have wealth, it's good to have gross products, it's good to have exportation, but it's good also to have human rights. I think that this would be a great news for humanity.
You said that Weiwei had this equivalence between political systems. But he does not have equivalence. He has a clear preference. He believes that authoritarian systems are superior to democracy. He explicitly said that democracy yields to bad governance, if I'm not mistaken. So my question to you, there are millions of people today in the world that live under bad governance systems, which are democracies. China has a different view, and therefore countries tend to be very tempted to export their models. They like to see what they do replicated elsewhere. So would you recommend to your government to go out in the world and promote what you think is good governance and less promote the cause of less democracy or non-democracy?
Actually, it depends on how do you define democracy. I like this Nexus Forum because you said at the very beginning that we discussed the real meaning of democracy, real democracy. But unfortunately, so far what we see, as shown in Arab Spring, about one person, one vote, a multi-party system, that's at the best procedural democracy. That's not necessarily the real democracy. Real democracy is far more important, as you said, about education, about many other important ideals. In terms of China, let me quote from everybody knows Confucius. Yeah. And he said, people are like water. Regime or leaders are like boat. Water can carry the boat, can also overturn the boat. So if you look at the China model in particular, the key message is stay in touch with your people. It's so easy. If you go to Africa, don't go there with your brilliant ideas. I respect your preference. It's understandable. But you do some service. What are they care about most? Fighting poverty, fighting disease, street security, safety, etc., job creation. You do this accordingly, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how China did.